Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Facebook Live session celebrating International Breastfeeding Week. We are excited to bring together a distinguished panel of experts to discuss the importance of breastfeeding and its impact of maternal and child health in the Indian context. Our esteemed panelists include Dr. Shalini Tyagi. She is having 15 years of experience in general pediatrics and neonatology. Dr. Shalini Tyagi is a renowned pediatrician in Noida. Her expertise in respiratory allergies and immunology has allowed her to provide valuable care to the children with respiratory conditions. Dr. Tyagi's areas of clinical interest include pediatric growth and development, infectious diseases, neonatology, and pediatric respiratory diseases. Next, we have Dr. Meghna Farke, a highly reputed pediatrician from Faridabad. Dr. Farke is specialized in neonatology, pediatric neurology, pediatric nephrology, and hematology. She has extensive experience in addressing various pediatric health concerns, including epilepsy, asthma, seasonal infections, and preventive vaccinations. And next, we have Dr. Sonu Raut, an accomplished obstetrician and gynecologist. Dr. Raut brings wealth of experience in high-risk pregnancies and gynecological surgeries, having worked in prestigious institutions and established obs and gyne department. She is a trailblazer in her field. Her passion for women's health and well-being make her an excellent resource for understanding the importance of breastfeeding from a maternal perspective. Together, our panelists will delve into the benefits of breastfeeding for premature babies, how it positively influences child development, and its impact on maternal health. They will also address common misconceptions, provide valuable tips for overcoming the challenges, and discuss ways to create a supportive environment for breastfeeding mothers. So, in this regard, my first question to Dr. Shalini, ma'am, in India, we often see a high number of premature births. And how can breastfeeding help these premature babies overcoming their challenges and thrive?
Thank you, Afan. And I'm so happy that you brought up the topic of breastfeeding. And actually, we need to discuss this a lot with the new mothers, with expecting mothers, and who are mothers already and are planning a baby again, because we're seeing a very, very big declining trend in breastfeeding, especially in cities like metros. Um, Usually, it is presumed that prematurity is going to be a hurdle for breastfeeding. Try understand a simple sucking and swallowing concept. The baby can learn to coordinate the balance between sucking and swallowing anytime after 32 weeks of age. Younger than that, sometimes they can't feed very well. And sometimes there is a chance of milk going into the food pipe, the aspirations happening. They might need help with maybe the tube feedings, maybe katori spoons feeding to begin with. Very sick children who have fast breathing might not be able to take breastfeeding and might need help otherwise. So, any child who's not lesser than 32 weeks to begin with, who's not on oxygen therapy for fast breathing or some other support, who's not too sick, should always and always be offered breastfeeding from the very minute of the birth the child has been born. So understand the benefits of breastfeeding, especially with respect to the freedoms. Nutrition to milli jayega na, all formulas are full with so much calories and proteins. That is not a major problem. Nutrition is there in breastfeeding and formulas as well. However, this breastfeeding milk is packed up with live antibodies to help them fight infections. They're the greatest defense against infection in these babies who are so vulnerable to catch some. And apart from that, it is biologically tuned that the child can digest it well. It prevents complications like NEC, which is a life-threatening complication, right? Easier to digest at the same time. And when the baby comes in contact with the mother, sucks the breast, the temperature is maintained. And it is also believed that the weight gain, heart rate, and respiratory rate stabilization happens better once the baby is put onto the breastfeed. So there are so many advantages even in a preterm baby.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, Dr. Rawat, ma'am, India has a rich cultural heritage, and with that, comes with myths, various myths and conceptions about breastfeeding. So, what are some common misconceptions that you encounter and how can we debunk them?
Thank you, Ansariji, for the kind introduction you gave. And definitely, we are full of misconceptions. And the first misconception that the family is having in their minds is that the first milk is the old milk; it should not be given. So the delay in the lactation itself again hinders the establishment of lactation, and then it causes a problem to the mother to start with breastfeeding. The second misconception that comes that we normally see in the OPD, the female is coming crying, मेरा दूध तो पूरा ही नहीं पड़ता मैडम, ये बच्चे को तो हमें बहुत बार बोतल से पिलाना पड़ता है, because they are imposed to think कि you are not producing enough milk, because they are not well tuned that every 2 hours, 3 hours you have to feed the child. It is not that your milk is not enough. It is the habit of the child. The child wants that is the demand. So what happens is कि घर वाले सब they do not support the mother. They would start saying, and the mother feels a sort of inferiority complex. She would feel that I am not able to feed my child. They have to be told that you have to exclusively breastfeed. You have to have that patience of feeding the child every 2 3 hours. The third thing the females have in their minds is that that my breasts are very small or large. The child will not get enough milk. So even that has to be explained. It is not upon the size of the breast. It will be made as the breasts are tuned to produce milk in the prenatal period itself. It is not that once the child is delivered they are producing. It is all they are already tuned for that. So it is there. And the newly found mothers, they do not know how to feed. They would just put the nipple in the mouth of the baby and they will not put the areola. So we have to tell them very nicely that you have to hold your nipple with areola like this and put the whole thing in the mouth of the baby so that latching is developed and they can feed properly. And there are certain things they would think my nipples are flat, they're inverted, so I would not be able to. And certain times, even as a obstetrician, if you're too busy, you will just leave it to the nurse. Sister, dekh lena, jara shield laga dena. And if nobody works hard with the mother and she's left out with the option, no other option other than feeding the formula milk. There are certain things with breast milk which has to be imposed on this, and then they'll say मुझे तो बुखार है मैं दवाई नहीं खा पाऊंगी क्योंकि बच्चे को दूध पिला रही हूँ. They will not even consult the doctor कि बहुत सारी दवाइयाँ safe हैं, you can always मुझे बुखार है तो मैं दूध नहीं पिलाती क्योंकि बच्चे को बुखार हो जाएगा. So they have to be told कि you are not having an open infection. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि तुम्हें दूध नहीं पिलाना है ना. तो ये सारी चीज़ें, again the food habits, ठंडा होता है, ये बच्चे के लिए गर्म होता है, घर वाले प्रोटीन ही देंगे. दे विल नॉट गिव द एग्स एंड रिच प्रोटीन डाइट. मैडम ये तो बहुत गर्म है, बच्चे को दस्त लग जाएंगे, माँ को दस्त लग जाएंगे. सो दीज थिंग्स आई थिंक a proper lactation expert has to explain all these things. Prenatally we have to counsel the mother कि ये सब होगा, because once I see the face of the mother in her postnatal period, I recognize that she is bugged with her family कि इस दूध नहीं पूरा हो रहा है and I am going for the formula milk and मैं एक अच्छी माँ नहीं हूँ because I am not able to do. So you have to give them the confidence. You are a very good mother. You will be able to do it. Only thing is you have to consistently feed the child and the family has to support the mother.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So, Dr. Meghna, ma'am, given the diverse Indian diet and cultural practices, so what advice you can offer to ensure that Indian babies receive optimal nutrition through breastfeeding?
Okay. First of all, exclusive breastfeed is very important. That we talk about the duration of breastfeed. ये अभी की जो आईपी की इंडियन एकेडमी पीडियाट्रिक्स की थीम है इस साल की, इट इज enabling breastfeeding, making difference for working parents. So with this theme, I would like to start, and because we have to make aware that people are considering, doctors are considering even about working parents, right? So when it comes to nutrition, first of all, they have to understand that breast milk and given in an adequate quantity on demand ad lib to a child for 6 months is an adequate nutrition for the child. So to improve upon the quality of the breastfeed, the mother's nutrition is very important. I'm sure with Dr. Sonu that gynecologists, they help a lot mothers to reach to an optimum level of hemoglobin during pregnancy. After pregnancy, also they put them on medicines for calcium and iron. And mothers have to remember that they have to follow the gynecologist advice, because the calcium requirement, for example, is much more during the breastfeeding time compared to when they are expecting the baby, like during the pregnancy. So this nutrition addition in that supplements are very important. Apart from that, they should ensure a very good high protein diet. When we say high protein, that does not mean that they have to take only protein. A good protein diet, more than their normal requirements, and that protein has to be at least varied forms, not just very typical मूंग दाल के और मूंग दाल ही खा रहे हैं या दाल की पानी पानी चल रहा है because cesarean हो गया है, etc. etc. Then they have to have fiber. They have to have good local millets in diet, they can have ragi, they can have kulthi, they have galactogog properties also. They have to have even lean carbohydrates and less amount of ghee, but some amount of fats. There is no need to finish off ghee bottles or ghee dabbas. Absolutely, it's not required. A little bit of walking is also required for the mother. And apart from all this, she has to take good amount of milk, routine milk, maybe fruits, and a good amount of water intake, because breast milk also constitutes a lot of water in it. And the mother is adequately breastfeeding, she feels extremely thirsty. A very different kind of thirst she feels, and she feels like drinking more water, and that has to be satisfied. If the mother is not dehydrated, then the breast milk will come very adequately and in good quantity. So that is what we can ensure about diet. Secondly, rest. मदर को रेस्ट भी मिलना चाहिए. नॉर्मली सारे कल्चरल इंडियन कल्चर में है बेसिकली कि about 40 days at least they give rest. Apart from that, the routine activity with the baby is also important. ऐसा नहीं हो कि आप सिर्फ अकेले रेस्ट कर रहे हो, you're not doing any baby activity, because that bond is nurturing. It has to develop on daily basis, and milk does not come out just because of the delivery. It is maintained when you have the oxytocin release every time. When you look at the baby, you feel baby, you smell baby. So all those activities are equally important.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Shalini, ma'am, many mothers in India face difficulty with milk supply. And what are some culturally relevant ways to establish and maintain a good milk supply for premature infants?
Okay, now एक simple सी बात समझो. When the changes happen in the body, the mother's body is producing the baby. It makes the changes that the milk will be produced. So unless until हम इसमें कुछ और बीच में डालें, दूध तो आना ही है, right? So let's talk about the things that kind of reduce the mother's milk supply. So what does it? The first and the important factor is the stress. डॉक्टर सोनू ने ठीक से हाईलाइट किया, हाफ ऑफ द मदर्स जब पैदा करती हैं बेबी को, उनको कॉम्प्लेक्स ही होता है कि दूध पूरा पड़ रहा है कि नहीं पड़ रहा, भूखा हो रहा है, रोए जा रहा है. So one, they have to know that if she's capable of producing the baby, she's definitely capable of giving adequate milk to the child. So thus, she should be psychologically supported by the family, by the gynecologist to begin with, and by us later on. Apart from this stress factor, not latching the baby early on is a very important factor. क्योंकि जब बच्चा माँ की छाती पे सकिंग करना शुरू करता है, तो उसके अंदर एक साइकिल सा बनता है, एक स्टिमुलस जाता है ब्रेन को कि अब दूध बनाना है, और फिर वो वही स्टिमुलस के कुछ डिफरेंट पाथवे से ब्रेस्ट पे आता है और दूध बनना शुरू होता है. तो अर्ली लैचिंग, सकिंग और रेगुलर सकिंग बहुत ज़रूरी होती है ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग का एक प्रॉपर अमाउंट में आने के लिए. अगर आपने देखा होगा, बहुत सारी मदर्स आजकल ब्रेस्ट पंप्स इस्तेमाल करती हैं और बच्चा लैच नहीं करता. ऐसा लैचिंग से आपका ग्रेजुअल स्टिमुलस नहीं जा रहा, और इन माओं का दूध तीसरे चौथे पांचवें महीने पे कम होना शुरू हो जाता है. पर यही अगर ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग अगर बच्चा ले रहा होता डायरेक्टली, तो 2 साल तक पूरा दूध आता है. सो पहला, मदर को स्ट्रेस नहीं होना चाहिए. दूसरा, लैचिंग, एडिकेट न्यूट्रिशन एंड वाटर पे डॉक्टर मेघना ने बात करी है, वो ज़रूरी होता है. इसके अलावा अगर मदर को क्रैक निपल्स हो जाते हैं इनिशियली, बहुत पेन होता है, उससे उनको ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग रुकती है, तो तो उसको प्रॉपरली पहले से ही ड्यूरिंग प्रेगनेंसी ही निपल केयर अगर सिखाई जाए तो क्रैक निपल्स को हटाया जा सकता है। तीसरा चौथा लैचिंग की टेक्निक, अक्सर बच्चा छाती पे ठीक से लगाना नहीं आता नई माओ को, जिसको हम क्रॉस लैचिंग टेक्निक्स कहते हैं। बच्चा किस तरह से पकड़ा जाए, कैसे उसे छाती पे लगाया जाए, उसका निप्पल, मदर का निप्पल के साथ वाला एरियोला का भाग पूरा बच्चे के मुंह में जाए तो ही वो बच्चा ठीक से सकिंग कर पाएगा। कई बार बहुत सारे कपड़े होते हैं बीच में, बच्चा बंडल बना पड़ा होता है, दूर से दूध पी रहा है, हटा दीजिए सब कुछ, मदर से टच करेगा नहीं होने वाला है ठंडा। दूसरा, आप सिंपल सी बात समझिए कि अगर मैं ऐसे करके दूध पीऊँ, ऐसे दूध पीऊँ, कैसे खा सकती हूँ? मुझे ठीक से पोजीशन तो चाहिए ना खाने के लिए, वही तो पोजीशन हमें सिखानी है कि बच्चा ठीक से पकड़ा जाए, मदर का निप्पल उसके बीचों बीच मुंह में आ रहा हो, उसे बहुत टाइट या लूज ना पकड़ा जाए, ये सारी चीजें हमें सिखानी होती है। तो ये कुछ कारण, these are certain reasons, you know, when the breastfeeding is stopped, and that is what we need to work upon.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Sonam, ma'am, India is a country with diverse cultural practices, and some women may face challenges with breastfeeding due to the traditional beliefs. And so, how can we encourage and support such mothers to overcome these challenges and embrace breastfeeding?
सारी चीज़ देखिए, ट्रेडिशनल बिलीव्स डेफिनेटली हमारा जो देश है वो इतने पार्ट्स में डिवाइडेड है, इतने अलग अलग जो आपके स्टेट्स हैं, हर जगह अलग बिट है। लेकिन कुछ बिलीव्स तो यूनिवर्सली चलती हैं, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल बच्चा हुआ, दे विल नॉट स्टार्ट लैक्टेशन। बुआ आ रही है, अभी वो गुट्टी पिलाएगी, उसके बाद फीडिंग शुरू करेंगे, मासी आएगी, देन वी विल स्टार्ट। So this traditional belief that they think that if the child gets that religious water from somebody, they look as their idol, उसके अंदर वो qualities आ जाएंगी, बच्चे के अंदर वो वैसा ही दिखेगा जैसे मासी दिखती है, you know. So this you have to tell them कि if you are introducing such foreign material into the mouth of the child, आप सिर्फ उसको infection दे रहे हो, उसको enteric infections के लिए prone कर रहे हो। ये जो बिलीव्स हैं कि हम अभी लेट कर देते हैं, हाउ दीज प्री लैक्टियल फीड्स दे आर गोइंग टू ओनली हैम्पर द लैक्टेशन, दे आर गोइंग टू कॉज इन्फेक्शन टू द बेबी। सेकेंड थिंग, अभी शुरू का जो कोलेस्ट्रम दे वुड अवॉइड, ये तो डाइजेस्ट ही नहीं होगा, ये तो दिस इज द ओल्ड मिल्क, इससे उल्टी करता है बच्चा, इसे निकाल दो। यू हैव टू टेल देम दिस इज द रिचेस्ट इन एंटीबॉडीज, ये सबसे पहले बच्चे को प्रोटेक्शन देगा, ये बना ही इसलिए है। यू हैव टू टेल देम कुदरत ने कुछ बनाया है तो सोच के बनाया है, ऐसा नहीं है कि ये फेंकने के लिए बनाया है। इट इज यस, यू क्लीन द ब्रेस्ट इनिशियली एंड यू स्टार्ट विद द कोलेस्ट्रॉल। आप बताएंगे कि आपको क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं, क्या डिसएडवांटेजेस हैं, ओनली देन दे विल बी, यू नो, दे विल ओवरकम ऑल दिस। हम बताते नहीं, गुट्टी नहीं पिलाना, अभी नहीं गुट्टी पिलाना, सिर्फ माँ का दूध, ये कह के हम चले जाते हैं, तो दिस डज नॉट गिव द इम्पैक्ट। if we wait for a while, we tell them ki what you are giving is going to cause what kind of problems to your child, and if you give this, what advantages the child is going to get. This is one thing. Second thing, I had told regarding the myth also कि जी ये तो बहुत ठंडा है, फल नहीं देंगे, ठंडे फल होते हैं, केला नहीं देंगे, संतरा नहीं देंगे, मतलब सिट्रस फ्रूट जो हीलिंग में हेल्प करते हैं हम वो नहीं देंगे, हम अंडा भी नहीं देंगे, हम ये भी नहीं देंगे, दालें सांभर वाम्बर भी नहीं देंगे क्योंकि भाई ये तो गर्म होती है, इसमें परेशानी हो जाती है। पानी तो देना नहीं माँ को ज़्यादा, नहीं तो पेट फूल जाता है। सो यू हैव टू टेल देम भाई 87-90% जो ब्रेस्ट मिल्क है वो पानी ही तो है, आप पानी नहीं दोगे माँ को तो दूध नहीं बनेगा अच्छा, आप खाना नहीं दोगे अच्छा तो दूध नहीं बनेगा, और अल्टीमेटली द होल पर्पज इज दैट द चाइल्ड इज गेटिंग अ nutritious rich milk. So all these beliefs you can only break if you are able to explain where they are wrong. If you do not tell them the disadvantages of what they are doing, and if you do not tell them the advantages what we see, then they will not understand. Whole idea is give them a vibe that what is good, what is wrong.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Meghna, ma'am, in urban settings, many mothers switch to formula feeding like in early stage. And so, what are the key factors to consider when deciding between breastfeeding and formula feeding in an Indian context?
देखिए सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात ये कि अर्बन मदर इज जनरली द वर्किंग मदर एंड शी हैज टू डू द वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस। ये बोलना बड़ा इजी है, आई थिंक ऑल थ्री ऑफ अस आर डूइंग वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस। आई एडमायर my colleagues for that. But see, hota kya, I feel there are three factors. One is policy, then people and family, and peers for any mother, urban mother. So the policy is that if the mother is a homemaker, good, she has 6 months. But the rest of the two factors make a lot of difference in her life, जिसकी वजह से वो कई बार ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग कंटिन्यू करती है, डिसकंटिन्यू करती है, दैट्स व्हाट आई मीन। मतलब पेयर्स हैं कि भाई हमारा सोशल नेटवर्क चालू हो गया, मैं उसका पार्टिसिपेट नहीं हो पा रही हूँ, मैं ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग करूंगी तो सर्टेन थिंग्स हैं जो मेरे लिए मना होंगे, कैफीन मना होगा, मे बी अल्कोहल मना होगा, ये सारी चीज़ें उनको मैटर करती हैं। पीपल एंड फैमिली अगर सपोर्ट नहीं है, लाइक पहले थोड़ा सा देर आर एडवांटेजेस इन बोथ एंड डिसएडवांटेजेस इन बोथ। न्यूक्लियर फैमिली है तो शी इज ऑल अलोन, वेरी डिफिकल्ट, there is constant conflict between caring for the baby and she being cared or not cared. Ye conflict, daily chores, then everything gets divided and then she finds the path of least resistance कि भैया bottle बनाओ, पानी दे दो, but they never understand कि बाबा उसका एक economical impact भी है, and of course the bond between mother and child becomes lesser and lesser in a certain aspect, not all of it of course, but certain aspect. And policy, when I come to अगर working mother है तो 3 months of maternity leave is absolute crime. In now, I believe everybody will agree with me. Government sectors में तो 6 months का maternity leave है, but 3 months is like we are talking about exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, and after 3 months, if she is going to join, how is she going to do? So at after 2 months only, she is after pediatrician that madam एक महीना बचा है, अब है ना मुझे ज्वाइन करना पड़ेगा, बॉटल स्टार्ट करा दूं, because when she is going somebody else will be taking care, it can be family member, it can be a maid or anybody, and then there are many issues, so she wants to find a solution once and for all. So that is the policy where it comes in, and that policy has to work apart from government, not just government, even for the private sector. There has to be maternity leave or at least a baby care group where the mother can leave the baby, right? And I agree with Dr. Shani absolutely with that pumping thing. Because there's so much of pumping advertised in all OTT serials, in movies, that they find it very fancy also कि भाई यही करना है. And somehow in the movies they are taking probably a liter of milk, which I feel, but that is not the case, because once the baby is not latching, of course the continuity is harmed. And it's very different, when the baby latches, the mother looks at the baby, it's very different, the whole scenario is different, and they have to continue it at least for 6 months. And again, when we also, I spoke about the peer pressure also, I spoke about the people in family. In that regard, there has to be division of labor, which is generally not so good even in urban settings in India, that people are not ready to take the burden of the work which is there because of the new family member, and they are not able to divide कि भाई तुम ये काम करो, तुम ये काम करो, and then the mother is confused, she's stressed all the more, and then again, as I said, the easy solution is found out जिसमें किसी को दिक्कत ना हो. But then we forget that the breastfeeding is discontinued. And with the formula feeds, there is a question of sugars, there is a question of NCD, non communicable diseases, occurrence of the same when the children are growing up, like they are 11 or 12 years of age. These studies are coming. So I believe this is what with some difference in the policy and certain aspect where advocacy would be required, where division of labor can be suggested, and support and tender love care for the mother also can be given. That way, it can make little difference. And in percent, I would like to also mention in Indian setting, generally every mother knows that they have to breastfeed, and it's a good thing. Even I think they have done a study in Australia of Indian origin mothers compared to other mothers in Australia, where they found that these mothers were well educated regardless of their education certificate for breastfeeding. They knew what it is. Where the problem comes is about the exclusive breastfeeding. After a month, it comes down to 74%. And in the population study, they also found that it's around 46% by 4 months of age. 4 months of like baby's age. The exclusive breastfeeding has gone down. So maintaining the breastfeeding is very important, and for that we need support in these three regards: policy, people in house, and peers.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Shalini, ma'am, due to the limited access to medical facilities in rural areas, So, what are some practical tips for mothers to address common breastfeeding challenges faced by the premature babies?
Afan, it is said that prevention is better than cure. So if the child doesn't become, if the child is sick lesser, he'll require lesser, services. तो ये तो सिंपल सा लॉजिक है, ये तो किसी को भी समझ में आता है. So as I talked before as well, breast feeding के जो contents हैं, उसमें एक चीज तो है न्यूट्रिशन. बच्चे को प्रॉपर प्रोटीन कैलोरीज मिल रही है. दूसरा चीज है उसका डाइजेस्टिव फैक्टर्स. बच्चा वो ज़्यादा हजम करता है, दूध की स्पिटिंग अप स्टार्टर आता है. जो इन्फेक्शन करेक्शन क्यों आता है, क्योंकि हमारे पास ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग में लाइव एंटीबॉडीज होती हैं. तरीके होते हैं जैसे इन्फेक्शन को फाइटिंग दी जाती है. ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग का जो कंटेंट बच्चे को मिल रहा है उसके अलावा बहुत सारे और एडवांटेजेस होते हैं. जब बच्चा मदर की ब्रेस्ट पे लैच ऑन करेगा, सक करेगा, मदर की स्किन से बच्चे के म्यूकस मुंह के अंदर के भाग का कांटेक्ट होगा. इससे जो गुड बैक्टीरियाज होते हैं वो बच्चे की इंटेस्टाइन्स में स्प्रेड होते हैं. उसका डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम रॉबस्ट होता है. आप सभी लोगों ने गट ब्रेन एक्सिस के बारे में सुना होगा. अधिकतर बीमारियां पेट से जानी जाती हैं, ये तो हमारे शास्त्रों में भी लिखा है. तो ये गुड बैक्टीरियाज को लाइन अप करने के लिए नॉर्मल डिलीवरी और ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग दोनों ही हेल्प करते हैं, जो आगे जाके डाइजेशन एंड एलर्जीज दोनों में प्रिवेंट करते हैं. रूरल एरिया हो या अर्बन, मैं नहीं चाहती कि आप इनको डिवाइड करिए कि अर्बन में फॉर्मूला अलाउड है क्योंकि मेडिकल फैसिलिटी है. No, it's a best preventive measure. It is said that the breastfeeding is the first vaccine to the baby. It's going to protect you against so many other diseases which a vaccine is not protecting. So can you count the number of diseases it's going to protect? No, you can't. So whether it's rural, whether it's urban, whether it's preterm, whether it is term, it has to be breastfeeding at the earliest, exclusive till 6 months, and to continue at least till 2, if not beyond, along with the other food practices.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, my last question to Dr. Sonu, ma'am. Indian women who face pressure to prioritize family responsibilities over self-care. So, how can we emphasize the importance of breastfeeding as a means of improving maternal health and bonding with the baby?
Um, See, when it comes to self-care, especially for a newly formed mother, it is not possible without the help of the family. So first, the female has to take the stand. The mother has to take the stand that yes, I have to take adequate rest. I have to take adequate nutrition, and because breastfeeding is not only benefiting my child by giving the nutrition, but protecting against certain infections, whether pneumonia, respiratory ear, and at the same time, breastfeeding is also protecting her from metabolic disorders like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. All these things, if you see elaborately, nobody is telling the female what else she is getting by feeding the child. She is not at all aware कि क्या होता है. उसको तो ये लगता है कि बस दूध पिलाना है क्योंकि ये मेरी एक जिम्मेदारी है, ये मेरा बॉन्ड बनाएगा और ये बहुत ज़रूरी है. बट उसके जो लॉन्ग टर्म benefits हैं, they have also to be explained. So she will start caring for herself when once she knows that this breastfeeding is giving me so many advantages. But at the same time, she has to make that position in the family that I need care, I need good nutrition, I need rest. अगर वो फीड कराती है एंड फीड करा के कोई बर्पिंग का काम भी ले लेता है तो उतने में भी उसको रेस्ट मिल जाता है. फीड करा के जब तक वो आधा पौना घंटा बच्चे को लेके बर्प करा रही होती है उसका दूसरे फीड का टाइम हो जाता है. दिस इज वन थिंग. अगर सेल्फ अगेन आई एम टेलिंग सेल्फ केयर इज वन थिंग बट इट विल नॉट कम विदाउट द सपोर्ट ऑफ द फैमिली. So the mother has to take the stand कि मुझे ज़रूरत है, मुझे अच्छे खाने की भी ज़रूरत है, मुझे रेस्ट की भी ज़रूरत है और जो बेनिफिट्स हैं वो बताना हमारा काम है. एज अ डॉक्टर वी शुड बी टेलिंग देम हाउ प्रोटेक्टिव दिस थिंग इज फॉर हर इन फ्यूचर and how protective it is for her child also.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you to the panelists and our wonderful audience for joining us today in celebrating International Breastfeeding Week. The insights and expertise shared by our distinguished doctor, Dr. Shalini Tyagi, Dr. Meghna Fadke, and Dr. Sonu Rawat has been truly enlightening. So let's continue to support and encourage breastfeeding mothers in our families, communities, and workplaces. Together, we can create a breastfeeding free and friendly environment that ensures the well being of a child and promotes the health of her mother. So, as we conclude this event, we want to express our heartfelt gratitude to all the amazing mothers out there who are breastfeeding or have breastfeeded their little ones. So, your dedication and love are shaping the future of our nation, our nourishing movement at a time. So, lastly, let's remember that breastfeeding the support doesn't end here. Feel free to reach out to our panelists or any experts in your area if you have any further questions or need assistance. Together, we can build a healthier and happier generation. So, thank you again for being a part of this meaningful session. Let's cherish the beauty of breastfeeding not just this week, but every day as we continue to celebrate the magic of motherhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarika.
Goodbye.
It was a nice discussion. Yeah, thank you, the Dr. Meghna and Dr. Shalini. It was nice interacting.
Thank you, ma'am.